So those are my qualifications. Please endorse me on LinkedIn. And a little bit about me is that my dad is from Belgium and I grew up in America. So I've had these two sort of pieces of media, the European and the American, being funneled into my young, malleable childhood brain from a young age. And one of these pieces of media was the French comic Tintin, which is written by Hergé. And here's something that Hergé said once. The reason I used so few women characters was to avoid ridiculing them. People laugh when a man falls in the street, but it isn't funny when a woman does. And I will say, he didn't exactly say this because he said it in French. But, you know, I was thinking about this because I think that slapstick should be an equal opportunity institution. Like, it doesn't matter who falls on the banana peel, it's funny regardless, right? But as I was trying to find counterexamples to this, all I could think of was comic relief male characters. And they're all from Disney or Saturday morning cartoons, and you could argue like, oh, the minions are just little aliens. They don't have a gender, but they're also all coded as male, they're all voiced by male actors, and they have male names, so that's my thing. Though I'm mostly going to be focusing on cartoons for this talk, because that's what our formative years are comprised of, I also want to mention that, keep in mind that this is a worldwide phenomenon that also extends to the real world. For example, these stats are from 2014, and they say that at the average US comedy club, only about 21% of MCs are women, 14% of mid-level comics are women, and 8% of headliners are women, which is weird because women make up 50% of the population. So it's just this vicious cycle of women don't see themselves as funny characters, and then they don't think they can become that, so then there's less women being funny. And what's up with that? I want to ask, why? What started this cycle and how do we break out of it? Well, first, I'd like to look at the portrayal of gender in general. And what better way to do that than Mr. Man and Little Miss? Literally, that's... Anyway, if you look at these, just the Mr. Men, they're very generic. They're just a blob with a face. And Mr. Ouch doesn't look like he's having a very good time there, but they each very much portray one emotion and that's it. Well, when you take Mr. Man and you add hair, or you add flowers, or you add bows, or you add shoes or eyelashes, suddenly she takes on this additional characteristic of being feminine. So the male is very neutral, but the woman is very accessorized. And you can also see this in the French cartoon Barba Papa, which is about your average family of shape-shifting aliens. I think it's implied that they're aliens, but it's very ambiguous. And you can tell right from here that even though there's a very good ratio of like gender, the women ones, even when they're in the shape-shifted form, they have heavy eye makeup and flowers all the time. So they have this additional femininity imposed upon them instead of just being a blob. And I want to bring this back to Tintin one more time. He has been described as the everyman of Europe because he's like genetically engineered to be as generic and boring as possible. And it seems so weird to me that as soon as you add eyelashes and lipstick, suddenly he's alienating to half of Belgium. Just can't relate anymore. So not only do I want to look at how women are presented, but how many women are presented. For example, here's a ton of television shows that I watched as a child, and if you notice the common theme is that each one only has 1 or 2 women in them. For my count, there's 51 men represented here, 8 women, and 1 robot who's up there in the Star Blazers. I don't want to gender the robot. And if we look at the composition of these teams, you might notice some color coding here. You have the hero, the protagonist, the leader, the sidekick, the smart one, the funny, wacky one, and the girl one. Just beautiful. So it's okay to use archetypes in media because, you know, it's just shorthand for what their personality traits are and what they bring to the table and what they bring to the team. But the problem with this is that 2 X chromosomes isn't a personality trait. It's just defining her by her gender. And the fact that the girl always has to be the feminine one means that she can't be in any of these other categories. She can't be the hero or the smart one or the funny one. So I would like to move on from the portrayal of women to the portrayal of femininity, which doesn't always line up. For example, this is the show MASH. It ran for 11 seasons and yet only has 1 female main character through the whole time. That's Margaret Houlihan up there. She deserves so much better. But there's also Max Klinger up here, who is a character who dresses as a woman because he wants to get out of the army, and it's always played for comedy. And I find it very interesting that when a woman adapts male traits, then she's just seen as the neutral default. There's nothing fun or exciting about dressing as a man because she's just being generic. But when a man dresses as a woman, it's becoming this other character. Suddenly it's wacky and zany and full of hijinks. And I'm an English major, so everything comes back to Shakespeare eventually. I might as well shoehorn him in now. In Shakespeare's plays, when a woman dresses as a man, it's always played for drama. If you think about Viola in Twelfth Night, she has to masquerade as her brother. Or Portia in The Merchant of Venice, she has to pretend to be a judge in order to sway a court case. Those are all very serious things. And while we're on the subject of Shakespeare, it's very indicative of how women were completely excluded from the creative process. Because Shakespeare's plays were obviously written by men, they were performed by men because women weren't allowed to be actresses, and they were also primarily designed to be consumed by men. So basically, women were excluded from the creative process, but the character of the woman and the portrayal of women was not, except that they were just made palatable to men, and they were just non-complex versions of them. So I'd like you all to think, what does it mean when a group is entirely defined by people outside of that group? Think on that while I move my notes. Okay, so there are actually a couple of times when women can be funny, and that's when they're being a parody of femininity. For example, this is from Tintin again. She's pretty much the only female named character, I think, in the whole comic. She's Bianca Castafiore, and the whole joke with her is that she takes being an opera singer super seriously. She's extremely feminine. She always takes an opportunity to sing. She's always looking at dresses and jewelry. And a similar phenomenon can be found with Miss Piggy, who the whole joke with her is that she's aspiring to be incredibly feminine and beautiful, but she's still a pig. And I'd like to move back to Hergé's quote one more time. The reason I use so few women characters was to avoid ridiculing them. So does this mean that he ridicules his male characters? Sometimes he does, right? Have them slip out of a banana peel in the middle of the road. But the problem is that these flaws are humanizing. And when you avoid writing about women, then you do have that, like conveniently you get to avoid that problem of coming up with humanizing flaws that don't take away from that prettiness, from that beauty. But the problem is that you put them on this untarnished ideal of femininity that's so high and so pure that they're not allowed to have any traits, like they can't be dastardly villains, they can't be complex, troubled heroes. They just have to exist in this beautiful realm that's untouched by flaw. So how do we move forward from this? Well, there are some ideas from Lisa Hannawalt, who is a character designer and storyboard artist for the show BoJack Horseman. And here's a couple of her gags. One of them is a crocodile wearing Crocs, which is just objectively hilarious no matter what. And another one is it's a dog slobbering on a business person. And nothing about these jokes is inherently gendered. But when she brought these storyboards to her coworkers, they said, I feel like these characters should be male. And she just asked, why? And they said, you're right, let's make them ladies. So she did. And it's very important to include women in these kinds of roles because there's nothing more to these characters than just a vessel for a joke. And it's very tempting to fill that vessel with just the neutral male default. But it's very rewarding to resist that temptation because then girls get to see themselves in these funny roles and be defined by something other than their gender. And that encourages them to become something later on that's not just defined by femininity. So one of my favorite shows is Sailor Moon because it features 10 beautiful women who aren't just defined by their femininity. They accept their femininity, but they each also have complex character traits. So works like this and works like Lisa Hannawalt's work actively work against these normalized systems, and they realize that history of excluding women from the creative process, and they give funny, smart, heroic girls a space to finally see themselves. Thank you.